A retired general just delivered the most devastating warning about Trump's America. Kelly didn't just criticize, he exposed a systematic campaign to silence anyone who dares speak truth. From targeting senators to threatening companies, this isn't politics as usual, it's the blueprint for authoritarian control. And Kelly just called it what it is, a direct assault on democracy itself.
To confect a fake criminal investigation. Tried to confect a fake criminal investigation. Listen to those words. To allow an improper seizure of funds Congress had appropriated and that were obligated and disbursed to the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Career prosecutors pointed out you can't have a criminal investigation with no crime, with no predication, with no basis. And the career criminal chief who'd worked through multiple administrations was forced out of her job for her pains, pointing out that this was a fake criminal investigation, and they went forward with it anyway, Bove and Martin. These are not minor prosecutorial glitches. These are true violations of the basic oath of a prosecutor. Another principle prosecutors follow is not to publicly disparage subjects of your investigation, both because it's low, it should be beneath a prosecutor, and because longstanding DOJ policy prohibits it. Bove's official client, the EPA administrator, made repeated public statements accusing the fund and its participants and its administrators. By the way, among its participants was that notorious criminal organization, Habitat for Humanity. Accused them of being corrupt, of being criminal, of engaging in kickbacks, of theft, and of graft. None of that is even remotely appropriate. All of it is in violation of DOJ policy, and we couldn't even get answers about that violation. I ask consent that my June 18, 2025 letter to the Department of Justice on these topics be entered into the record.
Without objection.
These are truly evil abuses of DOJ's powers that this person led. Those are some of the problems with this nominee. Then come the problems with our committee process, in which he was pre-licensed to refuse to answer questions. The committee conceded something Congress has never before conceded, that deliberative process and attorney-client privileges overcome our constitutional powers of oversight and advice and consent. Senator Kennedy and I noted this in our bipartisan report on executive privilege in December of 22. I quote, Congress maintains that all other components of executive privilege, besides presidential communications, that the executive branch recognizes, including deliberative process and attorney-client privilege, still quoting here, are not constitutionally grounded and therefore cannot supervene Congress's oversight authority. The majority, having made that astounding reversal and concession, then didn't even follow the rules for assertion of those supposed privileges, neither as to their scope nor as to the process for claiming them. These privileges need to be asserted. It's notable that this nominee never actually asserted them. He likely realized that they don't, in fact, actually pertain, and he didn't want to get caught out in the legal error of asserting a non-pertinent privilege. Plus, he didn't have to, since his non-answers were blessed in advance by the majority. Instead, he hid behind vague claims, not privilege assertions, vague claims of inappropriateness or things not being public or failures to recall. Just to remind, attorney-client privilege and deliberative process privilege, even if they pertained here, do not apply to administrative decisions within a department, and deliberative process, indeed any executive privilege, does not apply where the allegation is misconduct. Again, from my report with Senator Kennedy, quoting the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, the privilege disappears altogether when there is any reason to believe government misconduct occurred. We have enormous reason to believe that this individual, now a nominee, participated in government misconduct. The only executive privilege that Congress does recognize requires some proximity to the president. It is not applicable in ordinary agency administration, and the president must invoke it according to the Reagan memo. None of that took place under the blanket authorization to refuse to answer. We are dealing here with a nominee's attempts from a very high position in the Department of Justice to cook up a fake criminal investigation and to use an existing criminal case for political leverage over an elected official with too many accompanying violations of DOJ rules and practices to count. And we can't even get answers? The result was a hearing that more resembled a rackets hearing from The Godfather than a nomination hearing for a Circuit Court of Appeals judgeship. Throw in the Attorney General and Deputy showing up in person to give Republicans in this committee the eyeball, and the resemblance gets worse. Hearing by hearing, month by month, the bar is lowered and lowered and lowered for our constitutional advice and consent oversight, now to the point where a witness can say, "I don't recall," and it would be inappropriate, and that's not public to any question, no matter how bad the behavior, no matter how good the corroboration, and get away with it. Even with multiple credible, backstopped allegations of prosecutive misconduct by this individual before us, we are become a partisan rubber stamp. Neither the committee nor the judiciary is well served by our learned and servile helplessness.
General Kelly's speech wasn't just political criticism. It was a field manual for recognizing authoritarianism in action. When a retired four-star general accuses a sitting president of weaponizing government power to silence dissent, we're witnessing something unprecedented in American politics. Kelly systematically outlined how Trump operates through intimidation across every sector of society. The pattern is deliberate: threaten first, then escalate to actual punishment if threats fail. Companies face merger blocks unless they fund Trump properties. Universities lose research funding if they don't fire administrators. Trump dislikes. Even comedians face broadcast license threats for unfavorable jokes. This isn't governing, it's racketeering with presidential powers. The investigation into Kelly himself demonstrates this playbook perfectly. Learning about a Defense Department probe through Twitter isn't bureaucratic incompetence. It's public humiliation designed to deter others. When Kelly mentions Pete Hegseth's reported order for a second strike against shipwreck survivors, he's highlighting how unqualified loyalists enable increasingly dangerous decisions. Kelly's most chilling observation involves Congress itself. Republican senators and representatives, historically independent voices, now vote against their own policy preferences out of fear. They oppose tariffs privately but won't vote to remove them publicly. They want healthcare reform but won't challenge Trump's opposition. This paralysis isn't partisan disagreement, it's institutional capture through fear. What makes this particularly dangerous is how it mirrors authoritarian consolidation in other democracies. When legislatures become rubber stamps rather than independent branches, the entire system of checks and balances erodes. Kelly witnessed this pattern during his military service in regions where democratic institutions gradually surrendered their autonomy to strongman leaders. The process always begins with intimidation of individual members before spreading to institutional submission. The consequences extend far beyond Washington politics. When Congress can't function independently, bad policies persist unchallenged. Tariffs increase costs for families while Republicans who privately oppose them stay silent. Healthcare premiums spike while potential solutions gather dust because Trump disapproves. Government shutdowns become routine because challenging the president feels too risky. Kelly understands that Trump's threats work precisely because people believe he'll follow through. The president's words carry weight not through moral authority but through demonstrated willingness to abuse power. Every company that caves, every university that complies, every Republican who stays silent reinforces the system's effectiveness. This creates a chilling effect that extends beyond direct targets. Career military officers, civil servants, and elected officials all receive the same message: conform or face consequences. When institutions designed to check presidential power become afraid to function, the constitutional balance collapses. Kelly's warning about court-martial threats and death suggestions isn't hyperbole, it's escalation. Authoritarian tactics typically progress from economic pressure to legal intimidation to physical threats. Kelly recognizes this progression and refuses to normalize it as typical political hardball. The retired general's courage in speaking publicly matters because silence enables the system's expansion. Every person who stays quiet, every institution that accommodates, every politician who looks away contributes to authoritarianism's normalization. Kelly's visibility and credibility make his defiance particularly threatening to the intimidation model. Most importantly, Kelly frames this as a constitutional crisis requiring active resistance. Democracy doesn't defend itself. It requires citizens and officials willing to accept personal risk for institutional integrity. His speech isn't just criticism, but a call for others to recognize their moment of choice. Kelly's military background gives his warnings particular credibility. He's observed how democratic institutions collapse in other nations, often through gradual intimidation rather than sudden coups. His assessment that America faces similar risks isn't partisan speculation. It's professional analysis based on decades of studying how societies lose their freedoms. When career military officers sound alarms about domestic threats to constitutional governance, history suggests taking those warnings seriously. The stakes couldn't be clearer. When retired generals warn about authoritarian capture of democratic institutions, the warning itself becomes a test. Will enough people listen and act, or will fear continue silencing necessary opposition? Kelly has chosen his side. The question now is whether others will find similar courage before institutional damage becomes irreversible.